get into it. All right, so we're going to do something for you guys that will break into a little bit of the 2023 predictions, trends, whatever you might want to call these. And it's all built around blockchain, crypto, and Bitcoin. And a lot of this will be playing into many of these I think you guys will know, sure, easy, slam dunk, Paul. Some of these hopefully will be new to you, but I would love to get you guys' feedback on all of this. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. It's going to be a fun one because I think the key here with 2023 versus 2022 is that we've got a lot of things happening in the space. Hang on just a second. I'm going to pull up a sheet here I want to bring into place. But we got a lot of things happening in 23 that I think are changing the position. Hear me out on this for a second. They're changing the position of how we started 2022. Expectations much higher. A lot of things moving somewhat sideways and maybe even to a certain extent up in the beginning of 22. And I think a lot different kind of expectations have been set forth for 2023. So some of these may feel a little bit, I feel like these are still very positive on the outlook. I'll give you, kind of the end and the beginning. But also there's some of these that are very cautious. So we'll dive into all that good stuff. Before we get started, I want to thank our partners, and that is Quantum Miami. This is an event that's happening here in Miami the 25th through the 27th of Jan. So you guys will be able to go over there and check out a lot around not only Bitcoin, but they're doing a lot around blockchain in general, Web3, kind of the evolution of where many of these markets are going. And they've done a lot around speakers. They've lined up a ton of people, so you guys can kind of take a look here. I'll just kind of scan down through a few. They've got, of course, Mayor Suarez there. A lot of Web3 launchers, many people who've been in the space. There you've got Rand coming over from Crypto Banner, Ben, of course, from BitBoy, and then many, many more. So you guys will get a chance to maybe get some good starting insights to what's happening in the crypto space for 2023. So it's a great way to kick it off. Click our link below. You'll get 20% off your tickets. All you have to use is Barron20 and you'll get in. All right, guys, let's get into a couple of things. I want to showcase. I'm going to get the bad out of the way first, okay? Just get it out of the way. It's a nasty situation. And that, I think, is Gensler is going to wreck investors. And this isn't just wreck investors in general. I think he's going to have his way with wrecking a lot of investors, not only in the crypto space, but also in what we will see in the traditional markets as well. But I think we may see Gensler escorted out of the SEC this year. I think this might be his last year. I think there's enough pressure from what we're going to see in Capitol Hill to put some pressure on Gary Gensler and what this might look like. If you look at some of the things that he has kind of implemented this year, this of course was his this press release. SEC seeking to stop the registration of misleading crypto asset offerings. And it's not that I'm against, that I'm even for any crypto or registrations of trying to do something. But however, if you're a tech company and you want to go out and register in this aspect, and you want to use a token or something of that nature, and if you've got a product or a service that can make it through the SEC regulation, power to them, because I think that's going to be what we're going to be facing with. The other aspect of this is whether or not the real players at large can change kind of the destiny of where this is going. And I think the one player that you'd have to look at would be this tweet right here from Brad Garlinghouse. This is, of course, the CEO of Ripple. First day of the 118th Congress, while prior efforts to regulatory clarity for crypto in the U.S. have stalled, he thinks that we might be optimistic around 2023 and we'll finally see a breakthrough. And he gets into a lot of this, bipartisan, kind of shows some of the people that have been, we've talked about McHenry on the show, Mr. Emmer, of course, Rep. Tom Emmer has been on our show, Richie Torres. There's a bunch here that you should be following around this, because I think we are going to see some regulation in the right direction. A lot of this will be pinned against and for positioning, I won't say against the SEC, but at least getting the SEC into a position where we do get some regulatory guidance around all this technology that is facing a very interesting position right now in terms of innovation down the road. So lots happening around that. I want to get into my next one, and that is price predictions. We'll talk about that. We're going to get into this a little bit. Again, I don't give price predictions, but in the essence of where I think things might be going, at least for our own investment strategies. As you guys know, I'm a huge Bitcoin holder, and I will be throughout the year. It will be my number one asset. It has been kind of a resolution for me is to maintain a large percentage of Bitcoin as my number one asset. Because I'm a technologist, because I'm a guy that's grown up in tech, I'm always curious about other things that are related around that. So of course you're going to see me invest in some other things, much like businesses, that I've invested in many times and have gone to zero. Doesn't mean that won't happen in a lot of these crypto assets as well. I want to get over to a point right here. Eric Voorhees, you guys know Eric. He was the guy that, and we've had Eric on here before. He's the CEO of Shapeshift, but Eric is, I think he's one of the more eloquent speakers of Bitcoin. He really understands not only history, but he also understands the dynamics of finance and also the strategies of investing. And I think with all those things in play, he does a really good job. Now he's anticipating we might see a 40K Bitcoin by June. I don't necessarily know that I would agree with him, but I feel like we still have a lot ahead of us in the first half of the year. And we had this discussion with Darius Dale from 42 Macro the other day. And Darius is more about into 24. I'm more on the back end of it, so I would disagree with Eric in the sense of I feel like this might be on the back end of 2023. There are some pundits also. You've got Tim Draper. Let me kind of highlight that one right here. Tim Draper, of course, now dropping in another 250K prediction for the second year running. His last one was wrong, so maybe he gets a 50-50 and gets right here. Love to get your predictions. Smash the like button right now, and let me have your prediction over on the side chat. And just let me know where you think Bitcoin is going to be. Let's go by June, much like what Eric stated, which was 40K. So I'd love to get your ideas of where this is going. The other thing that I think we're going to see around this is the fact that Cramer, just don't forget about Cramer, okay? He's been kind of in the camp and out of the camp of crypto and Bitcoin all over the last few years. So I think if we just follow and do the exact opposite of what Cramer is doing, we will be fine. Another thing I want to jump to is market bottom in 2023. This is where I think that we might see some opportunities. And when I say, am I calling the bottom? No, I'm not calling the bottom. But what I look at are market indicators, both from a technology standpoint, a macro standpoint, and then also from just computer science. When we look at sentiment data and a lot of things we look at around what people are talking about, this is where I feel like we have reached most of max pain. Now, it doesn't mean that this is the end of max pain. I said most of max pain. Likelihood is we still are going to see some coming at us, mainly because of the traditional markets. I think will continue to take a beating. But this will be interesting to see if we see the bottom in the first half of the year or in the latter half of the year. That's going to be, I think, the bigger factor. I feel like the bottom is going to happen in 2023, and I feel like it's one that we're watching very closely. Don't forget, you've got Gemini now taking up a little bit of a spat with DCG in public on this open letter. This, I think, also starts to create some, again, the issue that we may face with Grayscale, which I think is the event that is going to cause some problems. If that, in fact, it's the one I'm most scared of. I'm not worried about, and I shouldn't say scared, but most in fear of in terms of an investor position. But I'm not worried as much about the miners as I am about Grayscale. If you guys watched our video earlier today, we did a chart. We showed one that broke down all the primary holders of Bitcoin in a few different categories. It was a really good chart. Check out that video. It was Sue Ennis over at HUD 8 Mining. And we got a chance to kind of talk into each of those. But I think this situation with Gemini, DCG, and where Grayscale may be heading is one that we've got to keep a very, very close eye on. All right, my next trend to watch, of course, is going to be DeFi. Scan back, DeFi. DeFi, obviously, we've seen massive moves to DeFi because of CeFi and the breakdown of CeFi over the last year, and especially the bad actors in centralized finance. And I think this is going to continue to be the case. Now, the one fighting element that may end up flowing into this is the aspect of how and what the traditional finance market might end up doing to kind of replace the CeFi dragon, so to speak, and how that might play into it. I still believe DeFi wins in the essence of 2023 and beyond, mainly because of its ability to work outside the lines. And when I say outside the lines, I mean outside the United States. We've got so much more interest in Bitcoin and crypto in general outside the United States. I think really DeFi is going to be a huge winner overall. Just as a few points I wanted to bring up in this article. Largest market cap activity within Web3, peak total value locked. This is 175 billion at the peak of 21 bull market. And then apart from kind of the democratization, DeFi has also opened up new models like automated market making and AMM. This is stuff we've talked about quite a bit. Lending models with NFTs as collateral along with other assets. So I think all of this can and will build DeFi into a much stronger element in the long run. So lots happening there. There's also some bad parts to that too. Don't get completely caught up in DeFi only. The one area that I feel like everybody knows where I stand on it is self-custody. And I think that this may be the breakthrough year for self-custody. Last year I felt like it was kind of a breakthrough year, but it was a time in which people, I don't think, were completely believing what was happening. When Celsius went down, when Luna was crashing, when we saw the situation with Voyager, and then to top it off with FTX. I think finally the FTX component put everything over the top. And when I say over the top in the sense of custody versus centralized exchanges. This is the number one way I hold crypto. It's the only way I recommend anybody to hold any digital asset today is self-custody. And I think this is going to be one that continues on building in a big way. For sure. Self-custody, new trend in crypto. This was, I think, not something new. Again, the number of people that are starting to roll into this. Now, there is one area that I'm a little concerned with self-custody, and that is the demographic shift. And what I mean by that is, hear me out, is that even though we're starting to see a lot of people moving into self-custody, unfortunately, and I don't mean to sound this ageist because I'm an older guy, but unfortunately it's with the younger crowd. And I think that that's what we have to break down is with people that either, don't want to mess with technology, don't have the time to mess with technology. I think we have to break down those barriers because right now it's 1 or 2 in 100. And those are typically Bitcoin investors or somebody that's been around the industry for a while. Those are the minority. It is not the majority. For us to be able to leap forward and really grow in terms of growth in the industry, self-custody has got to be able to make its way into this next demographic layer. And I think that's going to be in Gen X and the boomers in getting them into self-custody overall. All right, my next trend to watch for 2023 around crypto, Bitcoin, and all that is real business adoption. This is a big one. I think that we'll continue to see more and more companies actually implementing use case scenarios for Web3 and what that might look like. There's many that we've talked about here on the show. As you guys know, we have another podcast and show called Metaverse Insider that we've talked about this a lot. And the one that I talk about that I think is one of the poster children is always Nike, right? Is what they've done with Artifact and kind of repositioned their whole digital goods market. They've built around the NFT component. They've started to integrate wallet, applications, and they've also integrated a whole new fashion trend in digital for the potential of use case in Metaverse Web3. All that's been great. The one that I feel like actually is the hidden jewel is Starbucks. And you heard me report on this. If you look at Starbucks, their unprecedented interest in Polygon NFT rewards and platform launches. The reason this is so impressive to me and the potential for it is if you understand the food service industry, and we have another network that focuses on food service. I've been in that area for a long time in the technology sector, along with understanding consumer adoption around food service and all that. So we understand it. We've been studying it for over a decade. But this is one of the biggest areas in that industry. That's $1 trillion industry just in the United States. It's a almost $6 trillion industry globally. because everybody's, obviously integrated into restaurants and they're eating and all those things, it continues to be one of the most dynamic growth areas. If Starbucks is successful with integrating NFT rewards and smart contract utilization for CRM, customer relationship management, building community, this will be one of the biggest events that will happen in 2023. And I think at that point, it's a domino effect for the rest of the world around, where the next, I think, evolution is going to go. So lots happening in that area. DAOs, I think, will be another area that will grow. Maybe they become special, maybe not. We don't know enough yet, and I think there's some uniquenesses around, autonomous organizations that really will be growing, obviously, because of some of the pressures that we've seen within the industry itself. But again, these are limited to a certain aspect of the population. If you look at this forecast piece, it raises an interesting question. I think I would agree with these guys completely, is how regulators will approach DAOs. And I think this is going to be the one thing that will be a factor going forward. Now, I think this might be too early, but I wanted to put it on the list. I think it's a little too early for this to occur, mainly because from the regulatory outline of where this is going. And if you look at what this was, let me think, it was this one right here. Yeah, okay. This was the Commodities Future Trading Commission, CFTC. This fined a blockchain protocol. This was B0X, all of its founders, again, for allegedly offering illegal off-exchange digital assets trading without registering and complying as futures. And I think this is going to be the thing that will be looked at. And whether or not we'll see the real breakout along with some regulatory framework that may kind of shift where DAOs go in the future. I'd love to get your feedback. Do you think DAOs are in the list for 23, or do you think it's still a little early? Let me know in the comments down below. This next one is interesting because I feel like a lot of people I feel like this is dead to a lot of people. And what I mean by that is the Bitcoin ETF possibility. And I wanted to put it in there because I feel like the grayscale pressure has mounted to a point now that is going to get very interesting, especially in the first quarter of this year, and how the SEC is going to be dealing with DCG's request to get this moving, and whether or not it will be something that actually happens. When you look at the differences of how and what we're going to see around this Bitcoin Trust, this is a good example. They weigh the tender offer as a possibility. This would be 20% of the shares in its deeply current discounted Bitcoin Trust right now. Again, this gets back to how does it save its way through and does it convert Bitcoin product into an ETF? This is the big question mark that I think is the unknown for the year that will it'll be an interesting make or break point, I think, for Bitcoin in general. This is the one black swan event that I'm concerned about the most. As you guys know, we've talked about it a lot, is Grayscale's position, just because of the amount of Bitcoin they hold. So that has to be addressed overall in the overall trends, for sure. Yeah, I see a lot of notes coming in. We'll definitely address a lot of those guys. We've got people coming in with automotive stuff on the DeLorean car, all that cool stuff. Let me go back to AI and smart contracts. Yeah, AI and smart contracts, this is another one I think that we'll see a lot of you guys have heard me talk a little bit about ChatGPT, but I think there's going to be some implementation in the smart contract arena around AI. This might be the year enough for computational advantage to occur in computer science that could address this in the aspect of even securing blockchain further in the future. Some of the things that were kind of, this was on a Euro News piece. Let me kind of highlight on this right here. This was kind of just AI in general and what it's been able to do. So it's major strides this year. This is the thing to me that is the most interesting, because the amount of movement that we saw with ChatGPT to make such a leap forward, along with, just Elon and what he's done with OpenAI and the foundation. I think there are some very interesting areas that are being worked on right now that you and I and many people around the world do not even understand yet what AI's potential could be for some of this emerging technology. The metaverse is also an area that I think is going to play into this, and data will become one of the key elements around this. So this, again, if you look at what Metaverse's gamble is obvious with Meta. But I think, in general, he's got a lot of pressure on him. But I think he looks at this as a data engine for the future, how AI may play into Metaverse and the evolution of what Metaverse may look like is still an unprinted book that I think we need to keep a very close eye on. I think we'll see some big wins, much like what we saw with ChatGPT this year. But all of the companies that are starting to build tools like that to solve real-world problems that could dynamically shift how we even perform our day in and day out job. There's going to be a lot happening around that. And I think it will be happening in the crypto space for sure. Crypto payments being normalized. I think this is another one that you guys, we have to create the on-ramp. The on-ramp has got to occur where the normies in the financial participatory scenario can partake. And it has to be done in a way in which we're going to see leveraging up at scale. And I think that is going to be a big factor going forward. Where this can be and what that future might look like. Remember, you had Visa looking to Ethereum for automatic payment system. A lot happening right there, along with companies. Even if you look down the totem pole, look at companies like MoonPay that have been able to really create onboarding tool sets. Though I don't like their fees, at least it gives an onboarding tool set to people that want to use credit cards, and I think that's going to be a big factor in the future, especially this year, for sure. The other one I think that is going to explode this year is Bitcoin Innovators. And what I mean by that is there's a handful of companies that we've been following, and we're continuing to get a lot of, and I've asked out on Twitter for this, I'd love to get your feedback on this, is what Bitcoin Innovators, outside of Lightning Network, I mean, obviously we know and understand, we've had the Lightning team on before, but what companies and what innovators are you thinking about that you think will really start to shift the dynamic around Bitcoin? MicroStrategy, obviously, to offer Bitcoin Lightning solutions. This is a big piece, I think, with Saylor obviously well vested in this. There's going to be some innovation out of MicroStrategy that will be interesting. The fact that they already have a tech team, they're already rolling in down this model, I think is a really good line. Here's Apollo, which is heyapollo.com. You can check them out. This is a review process around products that you love and like and all that. But again, earning a Bitcoin and the ability to earn sats. We've talked about this with podcasting 2.0, which I think is very early right now, what that might look like down the road. And then you got this company called LightSpark, also really building around the capabilities and utility around Bitcoin. And I think these kind of companies are important because if they're capable of creating that next level up for Bitcoin, it starts to shift the dynamic around the need for other projects, crypto in general. Because I think in general, when you look at the future of where Bitcoin is going, now granted, blockchain, smart contracts, Web3, NFT, that's a little different because that's more of a technology than anything. And in reality, I almost feel like this has moved beyond blockchain and maybe even beyond Web3, meaning the normalization of it is simply going to be called something else. Naming nomenclature, I'm not as worried about. What I'm worried about and more interested in is the implementation of that stuff. Now, Bitcoin could take its own track, from a financial services side, which is really where I think it will reside. And that's the one I feel is going to be really big this year is Bitcoin innovation. Web2 gaming, let's get into that one because this is one that I feel like is going to be an interesting spin. Many people think, Paul, you're into Web3 so much, you think Web3 gaming is going to take, and I know a lot of people will argue that. Actually, my position is changed on Web3 and Web2 gaming. And hear me out, because Web3 gaming, though I like what the idea is and the future and the integration of NFTs and the value of all that, what it represents, I just feel like Web2 is going to figure out a way to create this solution inside the framework. What do you want to call it? Web 2.5? I don't care. But the point is you're going to get to some sort of level of integration of valued assets that will start to shift in the gaming ecosystem. And if that happens without the leap toward Web3, it may shift the dynamic right from under our feet, meaning a lot of these Web3 companies may be building right now when they don't need to. I just don't know. This is going to be the big question mark. If Web 2 can do it effectively and can make that leap forward, they will be the winner because it just has had a decade of roll up. The key is can they make it through that last mile? Because that last mile is really it's the end all be all for any technology. If you think about when fiber came to the house, when, you know, the last mile of what we'll see in AI, the last mile of those great technologies are very, very important. And if an existing technology ramp can make that last mile occur without a new technology taking over, will be interesting to watch. I'll get into some of that. I want to get into my other ones here. This is one that I think is also looming, and that is India versus the United States. And what I mean by that is crypto and technology, let's just call it technology adoption, and what that's going to look like coming forward. I want to show you guys some stats here because this gets a little bit wanky. This is the Economic Times. I'm going to go into a little bit about India. Web3 and crypto industry determined to build this competitive edge, yada, yada. Basically, they think by doing it, they'll generate somewhere around $1 trillion. Okay, that's the size of the restaurant industry just in the United States, all right, which is the second largest industry outside of medical. All right, and then you've got India saying, well, we think we're going to do this that can support a nation achieving its goal of becoming a $5 trillion economy. I think this is undershooting what the $5 trillion economy is like and what it could be like in India. Now, remember, if you look at early adoption, you've got to look at demographics. So demographics, let's go scan through some demographics and say, well, where is this growth going to come from? Because everybody has to know any kind of adoption occurs through demographic adoption. I'm going to show you, this is India, 1.3 billion. And I want you to look at this chart that they have here. The bubble down here is the age groups. And I don't know if you guys can see this too much. Let me see if I can zoom in on this just a little bit for you. As you'll see right here, right there, about the 40-44 is when it breaks off. This is this area right here going forward. Less and less people in the older, which means this particular market is rife with young, smart, and productive population. India by far leads the demographic race when it comes to the other major countries. Here's the United States. Look at ours. I mean, it's like a steeple. We're about to fall over because we have so many people at the top right here, which are the older. Look at this. This is the 60 to 64, one of the largest sectors. 55 to 59, large sector. 50 to 54, large sector. Large sectors throughout, and less of youth coming into the market because our dynamic has shifted around the very morals of how we operate here in the United States. We have pretty much put ourselves out of the innovation race maybe for the next 50 years. This is a big problem that could be occurring right now. You think, well, let's take a look at China. China's in the same boat. China has also put themselves out of the innovation race, again, because most of their aging population, this is a demographic we talked about before, are over the age of 45. This is a problem. That's their top half right there. Let's go back to that chart right there. That's their top half right there. I'm on it. Boom, 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 boom. This is a problem versus what they're dealing with down here where they don't have, again, a young population moving in. And this is one that is 1.4 billion in overall growth. So when you have a country like India moving in this direction, it really does open up a big opportunity for what might be happening in tech and I think in the future of where all this is going. So it's going to be a big one. Stablecoins CBDCs, these are other areas I think that are going to absolutely fly into the limelight this year. I think USDC will become a very intriguing element. This is Coinbase's CEO saying USDC will become the de facto, kill that off, the de facto central bank digital currency. And this is something that I think, Brian has talked about this many times. Unfortunately, I believe he might be right, is that USDC could become, based on the application of how CBDCs could be implemented. And just to get your frame around this is a tracker. This is called the Atlantic Council. And this is the central bank digital currency tracker. I want to show you the growth of what we're looking at in CBDCs. Launched is the pink. The green is in pilot. So you can kind of see over here with Russia, etc. Development is 33. So we've got 11 launched, 17 in pilot, 33 in development, almost 40 in research, which is massive. And of course, obviously the United States setting in as the number 33. Ding, ding, ding. In the morning out there. For growth and what this might look like. So CBDCs, this is going to happen, guys. It's going to question mark. It's going to be 2023 will be the breakout year. Will we start to see this really implemented across the financial system overall? I think it is. And if you've followed me on Twitter, I do talk quite a bit about kind of the evolution of where financial systems have gone a la 1969, 1931, some of those things. Just look at history and see where and what happened when we started to see bonds and also the adjustment of the traditional markets down that we saw in 2022. What happens after that? Typically, debt is erased and redistributed through some other monetary system that was created. Happened in 1969, happened in 1931. I think we're going to see something like that in 23, 24. So be ready for that. Don't forget, you've also got China's first national NFT marketplace. Might as well be a CBDC because this is going to create a whole new area around holding digital assets. I'm going to rush through the rest of these quickly. ETH scaling impact, I think I don't have to go into too much. This is going to be a big issue this year of where ETH scaling will go with the impact of Solana and the problems that Solana is facing. Will that seep over into other projects that are similar, Cardano, Avalanche, others that simply just fall by the wayside to the power of what might happen in the ETH scaling opportunity that's coming down the road? And then last is Metaverse boosting the AR/VR component. And there's a couple things to look at here. And this surprised me because I am, as you guys know, I still believe that AR/VR will be a thing in the future. How that plays into crypto, we don't know yet. But the potential there definitely for NFTs or some sort of digital asset collection is going to be real. If you're into digital collectibles, you know what I'm talking about. But AR/VR, when you look at these numbers right here, this was the VR unit sales. I mean, come on, this is the guy that leads one of the big golf games within Meta, the MetaQuest. But if you look at it, I mean, look at the absolute insane just spike in this. Now, granted, that's an $1,800 device. It's a problem, I think, for most of the population to get to. But if this starts to see, and it always does, we always see the price of that go down with the exception of the iPhone. But I think we will see this in Meta. And then when you look at Google Trends, look at this craziness. This is a 5-year trend just on MetaQuest right here. And if you look at where it showed up and then versus where it is today, I mean, the amazing growth of this, I think, in such an early time is pretty dynamic. We may be on the bell curve right now with where AR/VR may be developing. Again, I think Apple may have to chase from the backside of this, much like they did in the mobile device market for sure. Definitely going to be a big one. Let's go to the poll now and take a look. All right. Over on the poll, here we go. All right, biggest crypto trend of 23, self-custody, stablecoin regulation, layer 1 and NFTs. Wow, layer 1 and NFTs ranking right on top of it. Self-custody for sure. I think that's an easy. We just got to win the older crowd for sure. I would agree with this one. I think stablecoin regulation, CBDC aspects of this will play into this for sure. Let's get over to some questions here. Paul, do you think XRP will be held up till CBDC reg or implement? I don't think so. I think the judges will. I think they're going to make their decisions. I was following Deaton just the other day, and he was mentioning this by Q1, mainly because I think just the timing of it. You're now getting into federal court case costs. I know that doesn't really matter to most, but these judges do actually think about those kind of things of trying to wrap these things up. There's no reason to elongate that thing. Tell me gaming is dead in a bull run. Limited. I don't think gaming is dead. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, I think that it's alive and well. I think it might actually be a situation where Web 2 figures it out and is kind of like a hold my beer moment for Web 3 gaming. And they just take off. Gamers as a whole hate NFTs other than Illuvium or one or two projects in Gala. Crypto gaming as a whole is absolutely trash. And again, this will be, Eric, to your point, is that this is my strategy, this is my theory, is that Web3 has to have a Web 2 studio to really leap forward and figure that out. I just don't see one doing it. At the beginning of last year, I felt like there might be someone breaking out to do it. Outside Epic, I don't know that anybody's really thinking, but I think Epic is more still in the Web 2 camp than they are the Web 3 camp, even though I think they're going to reconsider a lot. Well, they've already reconsidered a lot of how they're going to look at digital collectibles, and I think that does play into the strategy going forward. Robert coming in with GBDC says, could turn bullish on a dime. For sure. With just one piece of good news. If we get something out of this from a GBDC positive, no doubt that would be, because that's the looming, black swan event that could really take place. Decentralized identity. This is one that I had on my list for potential. My concern with decentralized identity is I don't know that we have enough critical mass adoption for it to take place in 23. It might be more of a 24-25 run. Paul, DeLorean's new car being sold using NFTs. Automotive, some of the, I think that falls into the business adoption, category. What I'd say about that is, things that really need authenticity, such as, expensive goods, luxury items, etc. Those, I think we will see more of that. And then the super pop culture aspects, hence Nike, Artifact, companies like that. But again, those fall back into my business adoption of where this. Any comments on Ape and Yuga? I think Yuga needs to break loose some press releases, because I think they are could be one of the leaders that really kind of helps direct how this all plays out in 23, but a little quiet over there at Yuga's camp. Obviously, there's been, the recent clash with the SEC. Privacy coins will be the new trend because the governments will attempt. I don't think so, guys. I think those will slowly go by the wayside, mainly because of the minimum amount of use case. I think it all goes to Bitcoin. That's the privacy coin if you want. I understand there's some arguments there for that. I wish there was a different way, guys. I think that we're past that point unless we see some sort of mass adoption in major countries like India and others that have enough liquidity flowing into something like that. I don't think it happens here in the United States for sure. Crypto meme, ease of access always wins for sure. I agree with ease of access, and centralized exchanges do make it easy, but watch out for Ledger and watch out for Trezor. I think these two companies might break loose with some self-custody tools that will make it so easy to send and receive Bitcoin in a way, even more so than it is right now. I think it's easy enough as it is. But I think there's some biometric elements into this, some new tech that's coming at us. We'll see that with Stacks, I think, and how it plays out. And I think Ledger is just waiting in the wings of really putting the hammer down on some innovation around self-custody. And Trezor might be right behind them. We just don't know. Matic will gain a lot in the bull cycle. For sure, I agree. That's my number 2 holding right now, which I'm very public about. It is what it is. I'll hold it till I shouldn't hold it anymore. And then I'll pop it into Bitcoin or, look at another investment opportunity in stocks or maybe some startup companies. But I am looking right now to really grow. Bottom not in till Mr. Hart says it's in. I love that. The Hex crowd is in here. That's crazy. Your thoughts on Algorand? I like Algorand. It's in my portfolio for this year to invest in. And we've had the Algorand team on, I believe, when, technology-wise, I think they've got some interesting aspects around it. Jen says, is 2023 when institutions make their move, or will they wait for more guidance? I think we will assume that 23 will be the year. I just don't think it is. Now, it might be toward the end of the year in the sense of they may be making entries because of the soft bottom. But I think in general, they're going to wait for a more consistent regulatory framework and environment. That may, I don't know that happens completely in 23. I think it begins, which will get the current crowd moving in the right direction toward a bull and or slight bumps or recovery periods in there. I don't think Gensler has a job by this time next year. I don't think he's out. For sure. All right, guys, lots of good questions from you. Thank you so much. We always love to get your feedback, and make sure and hit like on the video before you leave. If you're not part of our Diamond Circle, guys, get in. It's a really easy solution. We drop a couple of emails a week. It keeps you updated on stuff that maybe you miss here on the channel. And it kind of bypasses the YouTube scenario where you've got to create that tag for every time we go live. Even though you catch these after, what we try to do is give you as much information and alpha as we can through those. So make sure and join. It's very easy, and it's free in the description down below. All right, if you guys want to reach me, it is out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.